Hi, welcome. This is part three of my what I call positive breakdown series involving a couple of trainers, and again, showing exactly how to establish the right relationship first, okay, before starting to do other things. And again, if you watch the video, you're saying he's hitting all the main points. He's just like a checking the boxes, going through all the main stuff I talk about all the time. So he's hitting all the main points on everything. So here, let's play some more of this again to key up on some more of this process.
I take another step, pull again. That's it. The dog is here.
See, and that's what it is. It's just like intent. Okay, you pull. So the temptation is wanting to use a command right away. Don't get into that because then what are you doing? Right? It's based on what's already you've already how you're perceived wrongly. Right? And so you don't want that type of a response that way. You don't want to go down that road. We need to, wipe the slate clean, which means that control, influence, right? It's a type of relational power play. Okay. You need to bring that has to come in. And so the dog understands intent. So understand there is, language, okay, through the leash, through the method. Okay. Dog understands that through how you're pulling the leash forward, the level of control that you have and influence. So it's not meant to be over the top. It's meant to be enough, right? Because we want the dog's mind to, right, to agree to it, right? So we're not trying to generate conflict with the dog. That can happen. I understand you deal with dogs that are at the aggressive level, right? Then that's when you have to have a muzzle on. You watch my videos, what I'm doing. And so it may be very reasonable, but very unreasonable to an aggressive dog. Okay, understand that. That's where you have to. But then there's certain accommodations you're making to do it smart. Okay, so people don't get bitten, right? Because it's more of a process that way. You have to be, the skill, the least skill, how you're moving. All your movements are so intentional. If you watch my video, they talk about that. Everything has meaning. Okay, so you get into, framing this up properly, right? You got to be really dialed in at a really good level. Okay, so
That's it. And what's the point? The point is that
notice he was checking the collar. Again, you want to keep your choke chain. It'll drop down kind of naturally on its own as you're moving. You want to keep it up high in the dog's neck for better control. Okay, so just check every once in a while. But when you bring it up, don't be touching and rubbing too much. Like he's not doing that here anyway. But just do not be rubbing on the dog where the dog takes that as petting. Okay, because that will trigger the dog. A dog that's gained a lot of control of the relationship, you don't want touch to happen that way. The incidental rubbing and stuff, you need to remove that from the equation. It needs to be clean. Everything needs to be clean to provide the clarity. Okay, the dog needs because the dogs that are aggressive need more clarity. Okay, you start rubbing. See, I showed video examples of it. Dog will become aggressive. They'll trigger off because it's like fire and gasoline. The rubbing, it's what's, been established in the relationship they're on with, that type of connection, that touch is about control. And then you start to, do the method, right? Start to bring control in and it's going to just fire off, right? Not going to be good.
the leash is slightly taut. Why? Well, because that's the initial contact, the initial connection. Oh, because dogs are impulsive creatures by nature, and they get
What? He's got the baseline. Imagine that. I mean, he's even got the baseline going. And that's true. Like, so you want to keep that level of baseline, as they call it. So it's a level of intentional control that the dog understands. Okay. And here it prevents, allows you to play off of intercepting very quickly. So, for example, that baseline's there, already have a level of control, and the dog starts to invest, and the head turns towards, say, another dog. Dog's control starts to manifest. Well, I just have to work off that baseline. It's already there. So I just have to bring up a little bit to break that connection. The dog's head will turn inwards towards you. That's the sign. Okay, that connection's been broken. It's like you're fading in, as I call it. So the head turn means fade in. And then you bring it back down. You take a little off again because that's the dog understanding intent. It's like you give, I give, but just so much. So you're in communication. It's very subtle. So if you're watching my videos, you won't always see that. If you're not looking, you got to really be looking. But if you're highly offended, okay, you're not going to be looking at that stuff anyway. I understand it's interesting. So trainers, when they look at my videos, if they're going in with a certain attitude, you're not going to pick up on all the stuff going on. You're not going to pick it out. And that's what matters, okay? Picking up on that stuff. So it's like I'm taking, you'll see me just moving ever slightly. I'm in communication with the dog. Why do you think dogs aren't trying to bite me and attack me at all? I mean, you see balanced trainers getting turned on. Look at the Tom Davis video. Go watch that. It's incredible that the trainers that have the most to say are the ones that dogs are biting and redirecting on and going crazy with, and it's like it's really bizarre. Like it's just like okay, like go watch my videos or go watch these trainers' videos.
Get
So sorry
excited
about this.
by smells, by branches, by bones that might be scattered around by everything. So, and our influence shouldn't be like just a tug. And that's it.
And like I said, she reached out there, give the dog a little pet. That's okay. If he has the control there, it's the same thing. When I'm doing service dog training, you always see the signs like don't pet the dog. And of course, at a certain level, you don't want everyone petting on your dog. But it gets to a level where is what happens out in the real world with a lot of these dogs are like they're not in right relationship with their service dog owner. That's just the way it is. I mean, service dog training industry is a mess for the reason of this type of ideology that sets this in motion of a bad picture, of a bad connection. The dogs are in a possessive state, so they're attached the wrong way. Okay, and then therefore, it's like people get really, paranoid about any sort of thing that's going to really make it worse. So they're like, don't pet the dog because they're walking on eggshells already. And those dogs typically can't even perform a task because to perform a task, it requires a more of a pinhead type of focus, which is established through, as you can see here, right relationship, right? That's a sequence you go through. But if your starting place isn't good and you're using treats and in that perceptions are not aligning properly, well, guess what happens? In especially in more distracting areas, that dog isn't going to be able to perform tasks that require greater focus, such as picking up an object from the ground, okay, helping lift the owner up off the ground. You see, and then people just try to make excuses, excuse it away, but deep down they know the dogs aren't where they need to be. Okay, so but here the petting part, if the dogs are where they need to be, getting back to my point, and the focus is there. That situations happened before where I've had, children come over. I have had like autistic like children, and of course you want them to pet the service dog. It's kind of a great moment. It's a moment of connection for the child, and I allow it because that's part of the thing. You should be able to do that, because that's what is really it's all about. It's all about, being able to connect with people that way through with dogs. But if you're not in the right relationship, guess what? It's like it doesn't matter. It's like don't pet the dog, right? But if I'm confident in the relationship and with the level of focus, that could be happening at a certain level, okay, and you're fine. Okay, your service dog is still focused when you need the dog to be focused. The dog is still gonna do tremendous. I mean, that's the whole point of everything.
Maybe I tug something for a second, the dog looks around, and nothing's clear. Then it tries sniffing the ground, chewing on sticks, and so on. Contact should be constant at the initial stage. That is, the tension creates this effect of presence.
Same thing. Moves forward. Right. Dog went down. Move forward. Dog comes up.
The effect of my influence. The effect of my relevance here and now. The dog understands that it needs to.
Same thing. So you see, he's bringing that choke chain up high. Better communication for the dog.
Well, react to me, not for a second, but constantly. But constantly. That's it. And as the dog shows a certain level of adequacy, an adequate response, we can try for example, I start like this. They take 2 steps, that is, and it begins. If I run ahead, for example, I stop again, not letting it run.
That's what I'll say too about if you're turning. Most times, especially if you're starting out, you want to turn into the dog. Okay, if you're rotating, he's turning the other way. That's okay, but because then you use your whole body. okay? Because you're making some contact. That helps to affect the dog's state of mind. So, if you're turning, if you're developing your walk, or if you're turning, like 90% of the time, if my dog's on my left side, I'm going to be turning to my left if I can turn to my left. Okay, here, he's turning the other way. But just to want to make that point, that because then you're using your whole body, because even if I'm developing the walk with the dog, I'm using what's called circle method. You see me turning to my left, and there's moments where I can let go of the dog. And usually it's on that turn when I'm making some contact. Now it's harder to do, of course, with smaller dogs, but with a dog that is like medium size or larger dog, that allows me to be able to use my body to to line it up, to bring that dog in sync with positionally, but also in terms of the dog's state of mind. Okay, because that contact through my leg and through my knee as I'm moving, that's a moment. Okay, that's actually, it helps to line up the walk so that I can go off leash. It builds that off leash transition. Okay.
On but sit. That is how the process begins. At first, the dog naturally shows resistance, but over
See right here. So, and he's right. At first, the dog will naturally show resistance. Okay, it's a power play. You're reconciling the roles. It's like a role reversal. Okay, so just think of it like parent child. The selfish child isn't going to like a parent suddenly in their airspace a certain way. You're going to be disagreeable to that at a certain level, and the level of disagreeableness is going to correspond to how bad the relationship is, how selfish the child is. It's the same thing. I mean, you'll see. So you get these levels with dogs where they're like start to lock in, and here you see it in the Murtaugh. That's why when I talk about the Murtaugh video with it lining up properly with Grey Goose, that revealed everything that you need to know. Okay, about the relationship he has with his dog. And then when you add in the problems he's having and the shell game he's playing, it all makes sense because you can't hide. There's no escape. Okay, there's nowhere to go. There's a way to know. Then what do they have to do? Oh, try to make excuses or find some way around it. There's no way around it. So here,
overcoming
locking in. So right, so same thing. So locking in, right? It's not meant to choke dogs or anything like that. It's, in fact, when you think about it, this dog right here is so focused on like they're blowing you off. So the dog's head's turning. It's not like the dog has the choice, right? Because directionally, right? Intent. Dog understands intent. It's a demand. The dog is choosing to resist at a certain level. But directionally, how it's funneling, it's not like you're hanging the dog straight up. And I see this with these trainers. I talk about this. No, it's got to be, the clarity is there. Okay. It's reasonable. You're having somewhat of an unreasonable response here with the dog, but you have to put that in context. But at the same time, this dog's trying to invest. Okay, this dog is right. Think about that. This dog is so you have to apply more. Okay,
his resistance is
and then see that, and then the dog what quickly just comes into agreement. I come into agreement, and then you just finish
the
off with
main goal.
see, just finish, and that was perfect. So it's always easier to understand that before the dog, goes into the sit, you want to corral the dog over. It's always better to, and he did it perfect here attach with natural movement. So as the dog is still standing in motion, then you put your hand and bring the dog over like he did, and then complete the total amount of the move with the completion of the sit, pushing the dog
Uh,
in, see, pushing the dog into the sit. And that's the thing too, is like there's a certain level here where, and this is how people will get themselves in trouble with the method, not here, but when the dog starts to sit, they on their own at a certain level after say a day or two, they'll not want to, assert control that way to assert themselves over, bring control of it to put that dog into the sit. They'll just like, oh, the dog's moving on his or her own. I'm just gonna not do that anymore. No, be careful with that. It's like a wave cresting another wave. I've seen dogs move faster. I talk about this in another video. Faster, hoping that the owner doesn't touch the dog. And think about that. Dogs aren't stupid. I've seen it. It's amazing. It's like I had this one lady, I've mentioned this story. She came in. She's like, "Oh, watch this, Dale." She had trouble with her service dog like everywhere. I hadn't trained her dog. It's the first time that we met. It was in the initial assessment. And she's like, "Oh, watch this." The dog is like, does a great sit. a great down and all that. I said, well, show me. And she puts the dog on, the loose leash. All right, we're talking about this, right? Loose leash, and the dog, but the leash was a little tighter, so you can see the desperation. The dog knew what was, but the dog started moving really fast. A down, a sit, and then just really quickly. And she goes, look, that's like, look, I don't understand. I said, oh, you think that's great, right? Appearances, right? You think that's great? Well, yeah, it looks all right. I said, we'll do it my way. Okay, my way meaning that you're in nothing over the top, but you're gonna, when the dog goes into the sit, I want you to push on the dog's bum slightly, just help guide it there. The movement's already happening, but just kind of we want to kind of crest over that movement so the dog feels that you're in control. Okay, the dog is wants to feel your presence that way. And as soon as she did this, the dog went crazy. The dog went up in the air, spinning, and just going in a high level of challenge. She was like, "What happened? I don't." So I'll tell you what happened. That dog's moving faster, hoping you don't touch it. That dog's in full control. And then connect all the dots with the other problems you're having. It'll all make sense. And see, that's the whole Murdoch thing, right? The whole shell game and with Heinz, with these dogs off leash on their live streams, right? And trying to offer up a certain picture. It's a fake picture, is what it is. Because, like I said, okay, because it could be something, right? Because I look at something and say, because if someone shows me an off leash dog going, I say, well, it could be solid, but let's put it to the test. I'll know here in like 30 seconds. Get the dog on the leash and apply that, and let's see if the dog understand intent, and I'll tell you right away. Why do you think these trainers don't want to do that? It's reasonable. They don't want to do it because it exposes a shell game. That's why.
Goal of training. Everyone starts saying, well, the dog is stressed. But the fact is, a dog is stressed at first, even if you hold food in your hands and don't let it get it.
The same thing here. I've been looking over here, but let's back this up a little bit to get this picture over here so I can look over here too.
Response, we can try. For example, I start like this. They take 2 steps, that is, and it begins. If I run ahead, for example, I
I think this
stop
is like
again, not letting it run, but sit.
the husband-wife team trainers.
That is how the process begins. At first, the dog
Here,
naturally shows resistance, but overcoming this resistance is the main.
same thing. See this dog flailing around because she stopped, right? You stop. Because I said before, movement can be a problem. You can look a certain way and not be. Same thing. Watch this. Go back up.
Dog naturally shows resistance, but
The dog going up.
overcoming this resistance is the main goal of training. Everyone starts saying,
So that's the thing. It's like I say about stopping. Why that's here. What's important. Stopping, right? Just like it's a reasonable demand. But the dog's mind's jumping, jumping, jumping. It's going to expose that problem right away. You need to stop. Again, another video, like you mentioned about Murdoch, he tried to exploit that, right? He edited one of my videos, put it in there where I stop with the dog. The dog starts going into a level of challenge. He was try to get all over it, right? Say, oh, it's like abuse, basically. Oh, look at this dog choking, all this stuff. Listen, but then I talk about his movement. It's a shim sham operation, what it is. So you move with the dog, mine's jumping. It's gonna offer up a counterfeit picture. That's a fact. Okay, so I'm stopping. He's the trainers are stopping here to what? To deal with the problem. Okay, a hard stop, right? And then you see the true nature of the relationship, the dog's state of mind. Is that mind jumping? Yes or no? Because the bottom line is, dog owners come in. It's like here's the bottom line. Do you want a dog that you can be proud of? A dog that sees you the right way? The dog that you go in a competition, you're going to take first place. You're gonna have the. Or do you want a mediocre dog? Like you tell me, what do you want? You want to settle for less than what you can have? I'm putting the information out. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit more intentional effort involved, but not really in a way. It's just like you're just adding to the script, right? You're just adding things in here to make sure it comes out properly. So part three, I'll stop it here. Keep these around 20 minutes, but again, it's an excellent demonstration here of the method, of what's going on, and trainer talking about showing it, showing with the dog, so it's not like same thing. People, anyone can do this, just have to be aware that, it is a little different. You're not using treats, it's about understanding the whole thing with intent, the leash and a demand and those things. But once you dial into it, because the relationship's the motivate the right way. Dogs are pack animals. There's a natural desire for a dog to want to connect and follow us, but we want to make sure we bring those core ingredients in to line this up properly. So thanks for watching.